prison sentence forgot to bring it clear for me.
I'm glad I didn't have that one, but it was a topic the other day, and I realized if I don't have patience, I don't have balance in my life either. So
I have to work on that one.
all right, here we go. All right, welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. You want to say hi to all the listeners, Janelle?
Hi, I'm grateful to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. Fun, quirky fact about Janelle: when her voice isn't so raspy, you can hear her for 2 city blocks. Like, I'm not shitting you at all here on this one. Like, it's the full truth. And once you meet her, you'll never forget her, right? So, you want to give a shout out to anybody particular before we get started here?
No, I just want to actually send a shout out to the person who doesn't know they're an addict. Actually, I didn't know I was an addict, and I didn't know that it wasn't my fault. So if you're out there and you're suffering, it's not your fault, and there's a solution. We do recover.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for being here. Start off every show like this one. What's one thing you're grateful for today and why?
Oh man, today I'm grateful for breath. And I'm grateful for that opportunity today to wake up and breathe, because there's many a days that I didn't want to. And today I choose to wake up and breathe, and I enjoy the opportunity to do so. And there was once an place in my life where I didn't want to wake up every day.
I totally relate with that one. So,
Yeah.
there's a point too. I wanted to die, but too afraid to die.
Right? Weak. I was very weak. Hey, and that's the way I seen it is I went out of my way to really try and harm myself, but just couldn't commit to the final process there. So
Well,
grateful now.
that's a blessing for all of us and everyone in your life, right?
Yeah.
So, what was your family life like growing up?
My family life. Well, what I recall is, or my earliest memory actually is of the day my dad didn't come home, and my mom told us that he wasn't coming home, and what that meant for us was change, lots and lots of change. And the dynamics of that, all I can honestly remember how the mind works is my mom was wearing a blue dress and matching blue pump high heels. And we got to have craft dinner for supper that night because it was our choice. Like, what do you kids want? We chose KD. That's like my earliest childhood memory. And from that point forward, my mom and my dad spent a great deal of time expressing their discontent for each other in mine and my brother's presence, um, and learning all kinds of adult details that children really don't need to be privy to. Um, though today I do believe they were doing the best that they possibly could at the time as parents. I don't judge them or blame them for any of it. It's just the environment created for a child was very negative, and I didn't know which parent to trust based on both parents talking bad about each other.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
I can picture that.
yeah.
How old were you when your parents split?
I was probably about 3 or 4 years of age, and I was born and raised here in Edmonton, Alberta. And my mom is from British Columbia. So after they separated in 1988, we moved back to BC on the coast, and we stayed there till 1994, where I was 12 years of age, grade 7. And my mother could not handle me anymore on her own, and that's when my dad became a vital tool for her in disciplining me. So my father became the bad guy, so to speak, in my life. And he went from being the guy I got to see 3 times a year on vacations and do fun things with, to being the man down the street who might come knock me around if I didn't do what mom said. So the fear was what my dad became. Like, fear is respect, respect is fear. It's really what I learned at a young age.
Yeah, different mentality back then.
But very much so, yeah.
Um, how old were you when you took your first drink or drug?
Uh, Alcohol would be frick so young, probably 6 or 7. I'm European, French descent. A glass of wine wasn't uncommon to be given, like in a small 1 ounce glass, to a child at dinner during the holidays or family functions, family reunions. I'd say my first drunk was about 11 or 12 at a family wedding. My cousins got me loaded on gin. I remember asking for gin at the bar. And the guy was like, have you been drinking? Like, I was 11 or 12. My cousins have been getting me so drunk. And then I thought I could just walk up to the bar and ask for my own. Yeah, that was my very first honorable, memorable experience. And I puked in someone else's holiday trailer that night at the age of about 11 or 12. Yeah.
That was my first fall down drunk at that age too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Progression wise, did you see when was the first time that you actually took it yourself then willfully or wanting to? Did you find?
I honestly can tell you I probably didn't even adhere to the desire to drink very much. Um, I'd seen alcoholism in a sense growing up. My dad was a heavy drinker till he passed out. My stepmom used to lock him out of the house, and my mom was a daily drinker, so she didn't drink to get drunk, but she had to have her one or one and a half a day, right? So I seen like the the types of alcoholism that lived within my bloodline already. I was very young when my grandfather touched me after he'd been drinking rum and rye, and I told my godmother about it. She told me if I told my dad would kill my grandfather. So I've never told my dad. To date, I still haven't. Honestly, it's not something he really needs to know. Um, but it stemmed a long spewing place of why my father was unsafe in my mind, and why I felt I couldn't trust him or have a good, honest, healthy relationship with him, right? And I had a predisposition to fear and and like not to trust men at a really young age, right? And from there, it turned in when I was at parties or places, I didn't know how to function or communicate with guys. So alcohol was a lubrication, it gave me a little bit of je ne sais quoi. I could go out and be social and not be so uncomfortable in my own skin, but I never liked the feeling of drunk. So the opportunity arose one day. I was at a party. I think that day I knew I was an addict. I literally knew because I walked into the bathroom, somebody was crushing something. I snorted it. I walked out, and then another girl went in behind me. She's like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah. What was that I just did?" And probably normal people might not have even entertained it, let alone maybe would have asked what it was, but not I. I was interested in the idea of getting outside of myself immediately, and I didn't really care what it was.
How old were you when that happened?
I was in grade 8, 13.
Okay, crazy, craziness. From that point, did you start hanging around with those guys after those people, or wanting to know more once you did know what it was? Like, what was actually? Let me put it this way. I want to describe to us what the effect was.
That day, the effect was I didn't feel uncomfortable. And a great deal of my life, my mental state made me very uncomfortable, like to be alone inside my head. Thoughts of being like, what would the world look like if I wasn't in it started like when I was 11 years of age. I now know that's not normal. It's not healthy. And I was missing some basic coping mechanisms and some basic needs that children require in order to feel safe and express themselves. And I was missing out on those.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
It's shitty. It's a shitty spot, right? But we learn from it and try not to carry that down, right?
Yeah, I can honestly say that I really have healthy acceptance in regards to my family, my parents, and my past. The big book told me that one day I would not regret my past nor wish to shut the door on it. And blessed that's where I am today, right? My parents did the best they could, and I don't blame them. And I'm just grateful they're a part of my life and I get to show up for them in a better way than I used to.
Nice, nice. What was the progression from that spot on? Like from doing it at the age of 13, did you find yourself seeking that out later, or just
Absolutely.
yeah,
I would seek it out in the alleys at break time. I would go steal cigarettes from my mom, so I had a reason to be smoking in the alley to see if I could get my hands on something other than a cigarette. Um, by grade 9, I was already doing mushrooms in the bathroom before last block so that when I left school, I'd be tripping. Like I would plan that shit out in my head. I'd bring beef jerky and Pepsi to school knowing that I'd buy mushrooms or some type of psychedelic that day and be on a mission on my way after that.
just romance it and figure it out, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. At what point did you realize, like, did you did you know anything about alcoholism or drug addiction at that point?
Other than I knew that I didn't like the way alcohol made people I knew behave, and I didn't like the taste of alcohol very much. I just knew I didn't want to do what they were doing with alcohol. If that makes any sense. Like, I didn't want to be the lady who needed a glass of wine every day, like my mom. And I didn't want to be like my dad and drink a flat of OV every time we picked up the beer. Like it was, I just knew early I didn't like the idea of alcohol. I think that's why my mind was so open to the idea of anything other than alcohol.
Yep, that makes sense. Fast forwarding a little bit, when did you when did it start to become kind of like, I don't know, well, lifestyle, I guess. I guess you said at age
Early.
9, but how
I,
did it progress? Or take us through the progression.
I'd have to say I'm a real addict from the very beginning. By grade the in between grade 9 and grade 10, I ran away from home. I didn't register back for grade 10 in high school. I lived off 107th Avenue and 106th Street. There used to be like a Husky and a Subway combo on the corner there where the ambulances used to come out. And I lived in an apartment that the HAs owned the house, and I was upstairs, like I was their cover. Me and two guys lived there for a while. I used to walk with brass knuckles when I would leave the bus or I worked at Orange Julius and I paid my own rent. Like I was 13, 14 years old. And when I paid my rent, whatever was left went to dope. And I liked being in the casinos. I liked being in the bars. And at that period of time, it was very easy to fraudulently duplicate somebody's identification and get myself into places where I didn't belong. And it slowly progressed. By the time I was in should have been grade 11, I went back and registered for high school. And I ended up smoking 6, 7 months out of my grade 11 years when I first met crack cocaine. And I was an honor student. I was one of those kids who could sleep through class
Mhm.
and get the 80s and 90s and not really have to try. So somewhere in my brain, I figured I just didn't even have to show and I'd still be okay. And eventually, I was probably 17 years of age when I was selling everything I owned to buy crack.
That's crazy. Um, how, when did you get introduced? So, just quick question. How old were you when you got introduced to recovery?
30, 31.
Okay, so from the age of 17 to 31, it was quite the gap there.
It is.
You want to take us through some of maybe your bottoms or sometimes that maybe you tried to clean up?
So I'd have to say my first bottom was about the 17, 18 mark. um, I, uh, I ended up unwantingly pregnant, high on crack cocaine regularly and unable to stop, and living in fear of the reality that I knew I was a child. I had no business having a child. Had to come to some really harsh realizations about what was going to have to happen and the choices I was going to have to make. And I didn't like any of them. And I didn't like myself for being in those positions and having to make those decisions for myself. Ultimately, I chose an abortion, and I do believe it affected me deeply enough that it does have a part in my story, a part in my pain, and a part in why I didn't want to feel, right? I was raised Roman Catholic. I didn't believe in sex outside of marriage. I didn't believe in having children outside of marriage. And here I was, a 17-year-old child, high and pregnant. So I was about 18. I decided I was just going to cold turkey. Cold
Just like
turkey,
that.
buds. Cold turkey. I was going to smoke an ounce of weed a week and I was going to be okay, hey? Because that was my cold turkey. Um, and that's pretty much how my story began and how I was able to somewhat manage being an adult while being an addict is marijuana carried me as my filler drug, where I was able to, smoke a joint on my way to work and then still work an 8-hour shift and then not be a burnout, not be sketchy, not be picking at the ground and looking out windows. Marijuana allowed me to have just enough edge removed that I could function. And marijuana actually became my best friend for most of my adult and young adult life. It was a filler for me. I got pregnant again with a man that was 15 years older than me. And I was about 20, 21, 21. And that is the blessing. I call Bailey Emma, my daughter, my oldest child. And I was with a man 15 years my age. I do now realize the daddy complex that I had. I spent a solid 11 years with this man simply out of spite. I can honestly say that now it was truly out of spite, not out of love. I didn't know what love was. I didn't even like me. I couldn't love me. How could I love another human? And when my daughter was born is when I first met love. And I realized love wasn't enough to keep me well. The day, not long after Bailey was born, I figured if I would remove myself and relocate and not be in the city and not be, I moved out to the country. So I just spent more money and more time on the road going to get my dope. It's really what happened. And it allowed me to be far enough away and isolate myself that I could start all kinds of illegal activities that allowed to pay for the drug habit that I had been growing.
Makes sense. Did you try quitting at all on your own?
Yeah, the cold turkey was actually in the beginning not too hard, other than marijuana. Um, Marijuana, I could not seem to be able to drop that drug, man. Like it was just my forever and ever. I smoked marijuana daily till I was 28 years of age. Um, and at 28, I stopped smoking marijuana and completely changed over for crack cocaine. And in 5.5 years, I went without marijuana and I smoked crack and did cocaine daily.
At your first time getting clean, not or at the age of 31, you said, right? Um, what was your life looking like before you got clean there that first time?
Oh, it was so unmanageable. Wow. 2014 would have been my first introduction to some type of what AHS or Alberta Health Services considered drug addiction treatment or knowledge. And I went to what was called ADAC at the time in our downtown core in Edmonton and said I had a problem. I did have a problem. I just didn't want to do anything about it. I was literally there to shut everyone else in my life the fuck up. So wanted my partner to shut up and leave me alone. I wanted my own space so I can continue to do whatever it is I wanted to do. I didn't want my father to be stopping in whenever he wanted. I wanted to lay all kinds of isolation boundaries that allowed me to continue to do whatever it was that I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it. And at that point in time, I was spending 4 to 6 hours a day in a bathroom smoking crack while I had a toddler running around.
So, yeah, I think a lot of us can relate or know exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
What was your experience going to treatment, or what was when you yeah, what was your experience when you first went to treatment then, or how?
So my first opportunity to go to treatment was an 8-act day program. It was 21 days. I learned so much, and I'm a knowledge seeker. I've been blessed with a brain that it basically absorbs just about everything I read. I've had a photographic memory, right? So when I went to ADAC the first time, there was just so many tools and so many things, and I was so excited. And I'd come home and I'd like tell my partners, like, yeah, like these are just normal things normal people freaking do, lady. And I'm like, oh, like just so shocked, that other people didn't need to learn these things, right? And that hungry, angry, lonely, tired, these are things that allow us to feel discontent and uncomfortable and outside of ourselves. And if we don't concentrate on just basic daily needs, of course we're uncomfortable. And I didn't know those things about myself. And I didn't realize at that point that drugs and my lifestyle had robbed me from basics that I
Oh,
should be experiencing.
I totally get it. I didn't even know how to brush my teeth or go to bed every night. I didn't know how to
Bed
cook for
routine,
myself. Yeah, I had no idea what the fuck structure was. Like I had no clue. You know,
discipline.
no life skills. I had no life skills, right? So
Yeah,
I get it. I
yeah.
get it. Is that your clean date today?
No, wish it was, my friend, but no, it was not. It was my first introduction to treatment. At that point, I thought I just needed a little help on how to start using cocaine and crack properly, is what I thought. Like, I just got a little out of control and I just need to wean it back to weekends, where it fit my budget or whatever. Um, I thought I could still drink. I didn't realize that my booze bone was connected to my blow bone, and my blow bone was connected to the crack bone, and the crack bone was connected to my fucking knees. And that's, yeah, really where most of that had taken me.
Fair enough. Um, what's your clean date today?
My clean day today is June 26th, 2016.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
I know. My when I first came into fellowship of a 12-step recovery program, I was first introduced in a treatment facility in 2016, the new year of 2016. Some members from 12 fellowships came out to introduce themselves and how they use this crazy book to help them stay clean and sober. And I was like, wow, I can read. Like, at this point, I was like, knowledge is going to get me sober. So I took that book and I went with that program and I hung on for dear life with all my knowledge at my command. I read, I memorized, I could verbatim you parts of the book today still. Um, but it wasn't enough to keep me sober. I was 5.5 months and sober, and I had not shared some of my darkest, deepest secrets that I was hanging on to. And they were poisoning me with the shame and the guilt. And I didn't like myself. And I was so scared to share those things about myself and be rejected or abandoned that I refused to share them until I got loaded. And within 70 hours, I was printing money, selling dope, stole a car, and had a needle in my arm. And I'd never had a needle in my arm in my life. And that was within 70 hours. I went out on June 23rd, and I was back home begging for my life on June 25th. And on June 26th was the first morning I woke up sober, and I haven't had to come down since.
Oh wow. Well, that's awesome though. Like how much clean time did you have in there between like getting clean and that relapse that you just described?
Um, my first honest go was in January 16th of 2016. I left my home, my child, my partner, walked into the Misericordia Hospital here in Edmonton, Alberta, and begged for my life. And like I said, I went back out in June of that same year, and I was back within 72 hours. And my ultimate fear at that time was I did not want to tell people that I had defrauded a medical and one of the largest financial institutions of the world of about $500,000. And I was looking at anywhere from 7 to 10 years for fraud over at 54 counts of fraud over $5,000.
Crazy. So after 6 months of clean time, and then I went to there within 70 hours. That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should.
Oh, the
That's
big
insane.
book told me, hey, that and it was insane because I'm sitting there in my relapse and I'm trying to sell the AA book and Cocaine Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous and any A to save your A to the people I'm smoking crack with. Like, whoa, because I knew it was better. Like, I really did know that I felt better on that side. I just didn't know what to do with the abandonment and the fear and the rejection. And then um, one day I heard a member that I was really respectful of tell me that, well, that's how she feels too. And I was like, holy fuck, help me. And from that day forward, like I said, I haven't really had to come down, and I've picked up a lot of tools along the way and listened to a lot of people that came before me
Mhm.
and hung on to that. Really has led me to where I am today. Not going to say recovery's been easy though.
Oh, I agree. I agree. It's a lifestyle. That's how I describe it, right? Like this is just a way of life. There's no fucking finish line. There's no end. It's the way we choose to live our life, abstinent and clean, and feel our fucking feelings and live life on life's terms, right?
Oh yeah, and that's a roller coaster when life's rough. And when I try and control and manipulate the situations in my life, I notice the difference in how my days, weeks, and months look versus when I'm surrendering to the fact that literally I'm powerless over people, places, things, and my idiosyncrasies and obsessions within my head.
Mhm. That serenity prayer is like the I don't know the blueprint for life, so to speak, right?
Right.
Like
And
it
that's how I
really is.
started. It is my very first day in treatment. In the facility, there was the serenity prayer on a plaque on the wall when I put my feet down on the bed, or my feet down on the floor when I got out of bed, and I would just like, oh, God grant me the serenity, right? And I just read it every day, and that was the only prayer I knew, and it was the only one I could stay consistent to, but it worked. Hey, like I just prayed that every morning, and prayed it every night, and I prayed it everywhere in between where I felt yucky,
Yeah,
and yeah,
you can sometimes have to, right? Like,
right.
what was your first year? What was the first year like, or what? Actually, let me ask you this one: what was your motivation when you got clean this time? What was your fire? What kept you inspired to stay clean?
Um, Fear. That 70 hours scared the fucking hell out of me. Hey, and pardon my mouth, but I hadn't been scared like that in a real long time. Um, when we stop drugging and drinking, usually the turmoil and wreckage we've created is so painful and awful that that's why we start getting clean. And then within a short period of time, we can't even remember how awful it was. So our disease allows us to just like talk ourselves into going right back out there. And for me, repeat the question.
What inspired you that first year to stay clean?
Oh, so when I went back to the program, I got honest and I admitted that I was sitting and waiting on 53 counts of fraud over 5,000. And I was standing before a judge on July 11th of 2016. And I shared that. And gratefully, I had members show up for me, show me respect and love and all kinds of care and compassion, and couldn't believe that it was just something so simple they said that I hadn't shared. And I was like, oh my God, this was so life altering and catastrophic, the end of my life. So I thought, because in the beginning, my brain was so sick. Everything that was a tiny bit of work was catastrophic, let alone the idea of facing a prison sentence.
Um, so I want to just I'm just curious about this one. How did you go back to treatment after the 70 hours?
Nope.
You
No, I
just
did
did it
not.
on your own. So how did you do it then? Like, what did you do to stay clean?
So what I did was I immediately returned back to my sponsor, the fellowship, Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the work. So immediately within the first so many days, I got right to work with my sponsor. Started reading that book. I let her book me. I did not pretend I was intelligent enough to understand it anymore. I decided I did not know because I didn't. I did not know how to do it on my own anymore. And I was willing to finally admit that out loud and surrender myself to a woman that I was terrified of and ask her to help me how to get where she was. And that's all I wanted. I wanted to be able to get up every day, take care of my freaking self, put a roof over my head, keep nice clothes on my back, and show up where I'm supposed to show up.
Awesome. Awesome. What'd your relationship like your sponsor look like? How'd that go?
She's an amazing woman. She put up with a lot for me. I also was incarcerated um, shortly after my clean date. That too is a vital part of my story and about being in the front line and seeing how sick we are outside of ourselves. So, for the very first time, I was able to see addiction in a whole different way when I went into the federal system. And I seen people use drugs that we all know you don't get loaded on, but the behaviors, hey, like crushing trazodone and crushing sleep meds and Seroquel and things like this, like that was the obsession of the mind. And I'm watching these girls in a prison do these things and harm each other and do things to the against their moral compass just because they don't want to be alone in their own skin, right? And what I was told is that I read that book and I asked for my higher power to get there before me and asked him to lead me through the process. I was going to be okay. And I was like, okay. I was so scared. I was just like, I was willing to believe in anything at that point and prayed that God would get to jail before I got there. Prayed that there'd be a purpose behind it and that I would make it. And my story in jail is a little complicated. I got 2.5 years. I was offered a 3-year conditional sentence order to be house arrested for 3 years, and I declined, and I chose to go in to the system. I'm grateful for that choice today. It taught me, like I said, a lot about the front line. It taught me about judgment. Um, that every single one of us is one bad day, one bad situation, one bad person away from ending up in a place that we never planned to be, even without the drugs and alcohol, right? Like life is so short and people cause harm and we react, right? And sometimes our reactions get us in some trouble and doesn't allow me, it's allowed me to be free to and open minded to work with and talk with just about anybody, regardless of what their past is.
Nice. Do you remember a specific moment where you thought you might be like, I'll be okay?
Hmm. Funny. I'd have to say probably this year. this coming year, coming into this year, is the very first time I can honestly tell you, in my heart, in my soul, in my spirit, I know no matter what, I'm going to be okay today. I have a foundation in recovery I could have never built had there not been a power greater than myself helping me develop it. Because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing when I got here, right? Like, all I knew how to do was yell, scream, get loaded, steal, rob, manipulate, lie, and fuck you over, buddy. Like, I'd steal your wallet, help you look for it with a smile, and then smoke the crack on the doorstep of your place. Like, I was sick, right? And today, fuck, I literally will turn back around in the store if like I forgot to scan the toilet paper at the self checkout, right? So like I'm definitely a different person today, and that's not me. That's a power greater than myself. I've invited into my life to teach me how to live.
How hard was it to build that connection with your higher power, and what does it look like today?
I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't that hard for me. I'm a hard-headed person. Hey, I decided to fucking drug and drink until I was on my knees, which is what I kind of shared earlier. Um, Crack cocaine had already basically robbed me of so many experiences and robbed me of so many times that I'd said I would never, right? And here I was doing all of these yets. I've never missed one of my daughter's soccer games yet. I've never not shown up for my kid at daycare yet. I've never, not called her dad for my Sunday pickup yet. And before you know it, I was failing in all areas of my life. Not only was I unemployable, I was undateable, I was not a good daughter, I wasn't a good sibling, I wasn't a good parent, I wasn't a good human. Like I woke up in the day trying to find a way to grind. I didn't care what I had to do. And I was literally, I'd steal from my partner, from my husband while he slept. Yeah, I would break in and take your stuff while you slept in your bed just to pay for my fix.
I don't know if that answered the question, or I don't even remember what the question
I don't
was.
remember what the question was,
I think we just
honestly.
went off a little bit on that one.
Probably.
But
Probably.
it sounded fucking great, I'll tell you that.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. Like I don't even know. That's all right. Let's go with this one then. What's some of the best gifts you've received since getting clean?
The best gifts that I've ever received in clean. I like myself today. I love most of myself today. Um, I can give and receive love. I'm a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a sibling. I show up where I'm supposed to. I'm reliable and accountable 99.9% of the time. And acceptance. I think it's been the hardest part of this journey is as an addict, I'm a spoiled fucking brat and I'm impulsive and erratic when I don't get what I want in my timing. And I've had to learn patience, love, tolerance, and acceptance. And acceptance was one of the hardest ones because it doesn't spell like, darn it.
Fair enough.
And yeah, as soon as I could learn to accept every single person, place, and thing as being exactly where it's supposed to be, and it's not about me; it's about me and my attitude that needs to change. That was the best blessing I've ever gotten is learning how to change my own attitude and perspective with acceptance.
Yeah, that's fucking huge. Like that's a total game changer.
And yeah, it is. It changes everything, absolutely everything in all areas of our life, as long as we can learn to shift perspective.
Yeah, and then yeah, yeah. That's it. Like at mic drop, right?
Yeah.
What are some goals you're working on today?
Goals I'm working on today. Well, um, through COVID and isolation of our general population community all over the globe, um, it's kind of been my mission to get back out there as a representative of recovery, that we do recover, what it looks like to recover, and going out to educate the ignorant. And I use the word ignorant, meaning the unknowledged and the unknowing, a lot of them being highly sought after professionals today: police officers, firefighters, paramedics, nurses, doctors, psychiatrists, ophthalmologists, ear, nose, and throat specialists. Like, these are the people that know we're fucked before we even know we're fucked. And if they had graceful ways of, approaching things, maybe some of us would learn there was a solution before we lose everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard, but you can't, like they say you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink, right? So, you
And
know,
I don't disagree with that, but I'm a seed planter by nature, hey, and that's really I do believe what my higher powers put me here to do in recovery is is to plant seeds wherever I go, hey, and I know that you can hear or read or see a message and it may not register for you today,
hmm
but in 5 years from now or 3 years from now or when you're willing, you'll remember. It'll be there if the seed has been planted.
yeah,
And without seed planting, we don't know that there is a solution. And I was one of those people, really. I lived in suburbia. I paid my bills. I ran crime rings. I had cars, money, you name it. So I wasn't a junkie, right? Junkies are on the streets with paper bags. That's what I thought. In the meanwhile, my organs are shutting down because I'm overusing cocaine and I have no septa, but I can push my nose flat to my face from like, you know, 20 years of freaking snorting.
yeah, okay. And just to look back and see how far we come.
Some days it's unbelievable that this is my life, to be honest with you. When I read my first set of the 9 step promises, when I would do the work to make amends and clean up the wreckage of my life and sweep off my side of the street, I was flabbergasted at the experience and then everything that's come after it.
That kind of leads into this question then. I was just thinking, what are some fears you've overcome since getting clean?
Fears. Um, I thought I'd never get my daughter back, and then that would be the reason I got high. I still don't got my kid back, and I haven't gotten high. Um,
But there's always a chance if you don't get high.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
you get high, there's no chance. But if you
Right.
stay clean, there's at least a chance.
There's always going to be a chance. And so that's what I've hung on to really is I had to stop fighting. I had a lot of fear about stuff ending the fight in custody for my daughter. And I had to get in a place of acceptance about that one day, hopefully, she will come find me. And I can share with her that my experience has been I am a recovering drug addict, and my mental health and my emotions have to be my number one priority in order for me to be good to myself and then in turn be good to the community, my children, and everybody else. So, my mental health and the situation I was in, I used to die in that relationship. So, fighting that man daily for years was killing my spirit. And I had to walk away. And today I can look at that and I'm not scared. I know that I have the answers and the tools to have a real healthy conversation with my daughter should she come looking for me and be able to explain that the reason I walked away is so that today I can be clean and sober to have that conversation with her when she comes.
No, you know what? I hope she does, right?
Me
Like,
too. Me
I
too.
hope
I
she does.
pray.
You want to do a shout out for her?
Phoenix, Simone, mommy loves you and I miss you like crazy.
Oh, there you go, Phoenix. So if you hear this, I hope you come find your mom, right? So, I got a couple more questions here. I'd like to ask. So, being a seed planter,
Hmm.
and not. How did you deal with maybe the label addict? What was something you had to overcome, or you didn't care?
I'd say employment wise, coming over with the word addict wasn't as hard for me as it was criminal. I'm a federal inmate, right? I have indictable offenses and I have a criminal record. So when you put that with addict, um, wow, I had a label, hey, and I didn't know how to accept myself with those labels. So again, when we answered what was like my number one thing that I was so blessed about was acceptance and that I really don't care what other people think of me today. What I do know is that when I look backwards, how do I care about the way I treated myself and others today and yesterday? And I know that anything previous to that, I've already done my step 11, which means I've done my inventory on a daily and I try my hardest to be accountable and make amends where they're due.
Awesome, that's nice. Um, Recovery buddies or recovery friends. What's your circle of friends look like when you're triggered? How do you reach out?
Oh boy, my circle of friends have changed considerably over the years. They've all been sort of different dynamics at different times in my recovery. Early recovery was very um, acquaintances, a bunch of acquaintances. I lived in a lot of fear, trusted very few people. Basically, most of my experience had been drug and crime related. So, trust was something I didn't really have to give, nor did I expect people to give. So, friends was hard at the beginning. right? And I'm grateful that there are some older members in the rooms, and they paid attention when they'd see younger members interacting strangely or like been friends not friends, and they approached us, and I was granted the gift of some older members. It was like, oh, you and so used to be friends, like what's going on there? And I'd be like, this guy, she talked to him, and I like, to be honest with you folks, like my vagina really was what talked to me when I first got to the room, because the idea of getting laid or getting with a guy or being involved in somebody else's stuff felt better than being involved in me and my stuff. So anything to get outside of myself was what I was addicted to, right? So I had trouble having healthy relationships called friendships with men without intention,
Hmm.
and then healthy relationships with women without competition. So that was a learning experience for my first year, 18 months, 2 years. Lots of older members taught me how to communicate, taught me to sit down and have the hard conversations, and taught me to respect myself by having those conversations. Are these people worth entertaining a relationship with? What do I bring? What do they bring? And is it worthy of my effort to go have these hard conversations or not? And these are things I never learned. Like, you might be worth the conversation, but she probably wasn't. How do I determine that? Morals, values, boundaries. But I didn't have those things when I was young or coming into recovery. So they were all learnt in recovery. So I had to unlearn all the bad behaviors and thought processes and relearn all the new behaviors and thought processes about myself and others.
I fucking love it. And it takes time, right? Like that's a
Dude, I'm
fucking
still
process.
learning. And I call my sponsor. Well, I wouldn't even call her my sponsor anymore. She's my circle of trust, and I love her. And when my life starts falling apart, she knows she's the first person I call. I have a group of friends and a circle that are all in recovery. None of us drug or drink, and those are the women generally, or few men, that I do reach out to on a regular basis. And then when I feel my life's completely unmanageable, I definitely reach out to my sponsor about what areas I feel are unmanageable and that kind of stuff. um I don't know, I did one set of steps, guys, with the AA book, and I got real honest with her when I did them, and it was just like, and I gave it all away to God. I did it with a clergy person, and it was just over, and I didn't have to worry about the trust, because I didn't worry about that woman or that woman or that woman knowing my story and sharing it in a group of people that are sick, people seeking wellness, right? And I don't claim to be fully recovered, but I have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body today.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I love it. I think that pretty much wraps us up on time, unfortunately. You know, I hate to say it because I'm loving this conversation. You know,
Excellent. I want to read something though. I just
okay,
have to read you this because they brought it here. And I really wanted to read this because it was my very first big book study. I was like a couple weeks into recovery. And this gentleman that I had claimed to be had a great recovery, and I was just so taken back by him. He had said this saying, now let me just find it.
I'm gonna let you take us home with this one.
Right? Okay. We, the unwilling, led by the unknowing, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful. We have done so much for so long with so little. We are now qualified to do anything with nothing.
Fuck. Bang on.
Right? It
Bang on.
hit my soul, and I put it in my book, and carried that one with me along with page 417 and 420 in my book, have guided me through some of the hardest times of my life.
If you guys want to know, we're not gonna tell you what that is. You got to go look it up yourself.
Darn straight.
What do you want to take us home? What's something we haven't talked about yet? And what do you want to take us home? Like, you want to take us home?
I guess basically what I'm going to talk about is that I guess I've made it my mission here in this stage of my recovery to utilize everything that's been given to me to give it back to people that have no idea that we do recover. There is another way to live, and there's a solution. And there's so many of us suffering on the streets and in our homes and out there that have no idea that there is another way to live. And we do have a hope of a life without dope.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your truth with us. I wish we could carry this conversation on
Oh, we
longer.
can do this again now.
Yeah,
I got lots of time.
we'll do this again. We'll do it again for sure. I'll get you back on the show. And for everybody else out there listening, you know, I'll leave you the same way I leave you every episode, and that's make lots of memories, take lots of pics, and show the world your smile. Thanks for listening.